I don't know why it does this. It keeps automatically connecting to that. Okay. Okay. We are live, everyone. Shalom, everyone. I'm Brother Doug, as always, with my mom, Sister Sharon, next to me. We got Brother Dennis and Sister Shoshana with us. We are the Wakened by Yahuwah Assembly in Yahuwah Almighty, in Yahushua Messiah. Today, we are going to be doing a continuation of our Sabbath day readings. So we usually go book by book, chapter by chapter. We started in Genesis like about a year ago, so we're gradually every Shabbat going through the scriptures chronologically. So we're at 2 Samuel chapter 8, and let me try to get my word software on the screen here. Okay, so let me go to compare, and let's do this, this, and this. Let's do a four-way comparison here. Okay. And we're going to be looking at here. So, 2 Samuel 8. Actually, that's right. The Unkalos is not going to be able to use that. So let's click off of that. All right, so we're only going to have to use this. Okay. Let's take off the Samaritan, and we'll be able to use the Vulgate, though. So let me see here. There we go. Okay. So it says here, starting with verse 1. Now, after these things, I'm noticing here the problem is, let me just change this real quick, guys. Bear with me for a second. I think I'm going to change the background color. The background color is kind of messing with being able to visually see what I'm trying to see here. So, see I would say we'll go with a very light, I think, a light gold background. We'll see how that goes. Okay. We're going to click OK there and just make sure. All right, so okay, yeah. We'll try that, see how it goes. Okay, much better. All right. Now after these things, it happened that Daud struck the Philistines, and he humbled them, and Daud took the bridle of the tribute from the hand of the Philistines. Okay, so here we go. He struck Moab and measured them with a line, leveled them to the ground. Now he measured with two. No. Measured them with a line leveling them to the ground. Now he measured with two lines, one to kill, one to keep alive, and Moab was made to serve Daud under tribute. So again, we're at 2 Samuel 8:3. Daud struck Hadad Ezer, the son of Rehoboam, the king of Zubah. No. And when he set out to rule over the river Euphrates. And from his troops, Daud seized 1,700 horsemen, 20,000 foot soldiers, and he cut the sinew of the leg and all the chariot horses. but he left aside enough of them for 100 chariots. The Syrians of Damascus arrived so that they might bring reinforcements to Hadadezer, the king of Zubah, and Daud struck down 20,000 men of the Syrians. So now you go from the Moabites to the Syrians here. And Daud positioned a garrison in Syria of Damascus, and Syria served Daud under tribute. Yahuwah assisted Daud in all the things whatsoever that he set out to accomplish. Okay, so we have, again, talking about a garrison in Syria of Damascus. Syria served Daud under tribute. Okay, so very interesting. So Syria, I did not realize, was of Damascus.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. And Daud took armbands of gold and the servants of Hadazer had, and he brought them to Jerusalem. Now, what I'm noticing here is there's something missing here. It says, and Susa Kim, king of Egypt, took them when he went up to Jerusalem in the days of Rehoboam, son of Solomon. So there's a little tidbit here that the LXX has that the Masoretic and the Vulgate don't. So I just want to make a note of this when I actually do a study about the 2 Samuel. Now let me make sure I'm in the right chapter. We're in 9, right? Oh no, I'm reading 8 by mistake. My bad, guys. That's my fault. I'm glad I came across that though. What was that verse that I just read? It was like verse 7 of that chapter, where there's like a weird omission there. Just before I jump to, I just want to apologize to everyone. I was reading the wrong chapter there, but I think it was meant to be because I found something interesting there that I need to make a note of. So, Masoretic text in Vulgate omits half of verse 7 in chapter 8. Mom, would you like to read chapter 9? I need to get something to drink right now.
Sure, no problem. Okay. David asked, is there anyone still left of the house of Saul to whom I can show kindness for Jonathan's sake? Now there was a servant of Saul's household named Ziba. They called him to appear before David, and the king said to him, are you Ziba? Your servant, he replied. The king asked, is there no one still left of the house of Saul to whom I can show Yahuwah's kindness? Ziba answered the king, there is still a son of Jonathan. He is crippled in both feet. Where is he? The king asked. Ziba answered, he is at the house of Machir, son of Amiel, in Lodabar. So King David had him brought from Lodabar, from the house of Machir, son of Amiel. When Mephibosheth, son of Jonathan, the son of Saul, came to David, he bowed down to pay him honor. David said, Mephibosheth, your servant, he replied. Don't be afraid, David said to him, for I will surely show you kindness. For the sake of your father, Jonathan, I will restore to you all the land that belonged to your grandfather Saul, and you will always eat at my table. Mephibosheth bowed down and said, what is your servant that you should notice a dead dog like me? Then the king summoned Ziba, Saul's servant, and said to him, I have given your master's grandson everything that belonged to Saul and his family. You and your sons and your servants are to farm the land for him and bring in the crops so that your master's grandson may be provided for, and Mephibosheth's grandson of your master will always eat at my table. Now Ziba had 15 swords and 20 servants. I'm sorry. Now Ziba had 15 sons and 20 servants. Then Ziba said to the king, your servant will do whatever my lord the king commands. his servant to do. So Mephibosheth ate at David's table like one of the king's sons. Mephibosheth had a young son named Micah, and all the members of Ziba's household were servants of Mephibosheth. And Mephibosheth lived in Jerusalem because he always ate at the king's table, and he was crippled in both feet.
Hmm. Yeah, it's pretty self-explanatory. Not much to expound upon other than, Daoud was obviously keeping his covenant, his oath that he made with Jonathan, about this last descendant of his that he could show mercy to. That's kind of the whole context here. Other than that, I mean, it's self-explanatory. This was a really, really brief chapter. Um, so yeah. What's interesting is why he would refer to himself as a dead dog, especially if he's a son of Jonathan. It's very weird because usually a dog in scripture, right, is supposed to be a heathen. Usually, you don't see like the oh, I didn't even realize I didn't plug this microphone back in. Hopefully, you guys can hear me well enough. Can you hear me a little bit better now? That just referencing himself as a dog is very weird unless he's like humbling himself in a certain way. It's a very weird term for him to refer to himself as. Uh, um, so, for example, right, you have that one woman that Yahusha comes across, not the Samaritan woman, but the other Gentile woman, where she's like the dogs lick the crumbs. She's referring to herself as a dog. Why? Because she's a Gentile. In their culture, if you served other mighty ones, you were like a dog because you lived in the futility of the flesh. And spiritually, Yahuwah refers that as a dog. Even scripture talks about as a dog returns to his vomit. And the Gentiles were referred to like that. So it's very weird how this descendant of Jonathan is referring himself as a dog. It's just a little weird. Let's see. Just as my master has ordered your servant, so will your servant do. Mephibosheth shall eat at my table like one of the sons of the king. Okay. Now Mephibosheth had a young son whose name was Micah. Truly, all the kindred of the house of Ziba served Mephibosheth. But Mephibosheth lived in Jerusalem, for he was fed always from the table of the king, and he was lame in both feet. Okay. All right, so we're pretty much going to go into chapter 10. Just here, I got to go on a short intermission. Mom, do you want to start this chapter?
Sure, absolutely.
I'll finish it off when I come back.
Okay, David defeats the Ammonites. In the course of time, the king of the Ammonites died, and his son Hanun succeeded him as king. David thought, I will show kindness to Hanun, son of Nahash, just as his father showed kindness to me. So David sent a delegation to express his sympathy to Hanun concerning his father. When David's men came to the land of the Ammonites, the Ammonite nobles, and to Hanun, their master, do you think David is honoring your father by sending men to you to express sympathy? Hasn't David sent them to you to explore the city and spy it out and overthrow it? So Hanun seized David's men, shaved off half of each man's beard, cut off their garments in the middle at the buttocks, and sent them away. When David was told about this, he sent messengers to meet the men, for they were greatly humiliated. The king said, "Stay at Jericho till your beards have grown, and then come back." When the Ammonites realized that they had become a stench at David's nostrils, they hired 20,000 Aramean soldiers from Beth Rehob and Sobah, as well as the king of Maacah with 1,000 men, and also 12,000 men from Tob. On hearing this, David sent Joab out with the entire army of fighting men. The Ammonites came out and drew up in battle formation at the entrance to their city gate, while the Arameans of Sobah and Rehob, with the men of Tob and Maacah, were by themselves in the open country. Joab saw that there were battle lines in front of him and behind him, so he selected some of the best troops in Yashrael and deployed them against the Arameans. He put the rest of the men under the command of Abishai, his brother, and deployed them against the Ammonites. Joab said, "If the Arameans are too strong for me, then you are to come to my rescue. But if the Ammonites are too strong for you, then I will come to rescue you. Be strong and let us fight bravely for our people and the cities of our Elohim. Yahuwah will do what is good in his sight." Then Joab and the troops with him advanced to fight the Arameans, and they fled before him. When the Ammonites saw that the Arameans were fleeing, they fled before Abishai and went inside the city. So Joab returned from fighting the Ammonites and came to Jerusalem. After the Arameans saw that they had been routed by Yashrael, they regrouped. Hadadezer had Arameans brought from beyond the river, Euphrates, that is. Okay. They went to Halam with Shobach, the commander of Hadadezer's army, leading them. When David was told of this, he gathered all Yashrael, crossed the Jordan, and went to Halam. The Arameans formed their battle lines to meet David and fought against him. But they fled before Yashrael, and David killed 700 of their charioteers and 40,000 of their foot soldiers. Okay. He also struck down Sayabach, the commander of their army, and he died there. When all the kings who were vassals of Hadadezer saw that they had been defeated by Yashrael, they made peace with the Israelites and became subject to them. So the Arameans were afraid to help the Ammonites anymore.
Okay, so what verse are we at?
I finished the chapter.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you had noon. You all right?
Yeah, I'm good. Good.
Let's see. Supposed to say that you might overthrow it. Okay. Yeah. So basically, the whole reason he probably wanted them to regrow their beards in their culture, for someone to degrade you like that, it's a shame to them. I mean, basically the guys shaved their beards, and then even I think it even gets even worse than that. It
Exposed their bottom part.
cut their garments at the middle as far as the buttocks. So, and he sent them away. Yeah, so that's a specific reason that and I'm pretty sure the way he would have shaved their heads, it would have been somehow disfigured their beards and their heads to the point where, it was a shame to them.
Mm-hmm.
Because it says in the Septuagint and the Vulgate, it makes it a little bit more specific. It says he shaved off one half part of their beards at the
Mm-hmm.
middle, um, as uh, um as far as the buttocks, and he sent them away. So that's weird. Um, and he cut their garments. So he shaved off one half part of their beards. I don't even know what that would be. I guess like again, he was trying to disfigure them and put them to shame. So I guess you could say maybe he shaved the one side of their face of their
Mm-hmm.
beard and left the other one undone. So kind of just to kind of, basically reproach them. Um, and I know some people out there, because there's some people out there that think shaving's a sin, or they'll try to use
Oh.
this out of context. It's not that the shaving of itself, you shaving your face, is a reproach. It's the way they did it to them.
Mm-hmm.
They're doing, and the purpose they did it to them. This guy did to them was to make them ashamed. So it's not a shame to have a clean shaven face. Okay. So I know a lot of people will take that and try to infer that that shows we're not supposed to shave our beards or whatever, but that's not the case. Anyway. um so let's see here. When had been reported to Daud, he sent to meet them, and the men were greatly disturbed by shame, and Daud commanded them, remain until your beards grow back and then return. So we just talked about that. Syrians of Rehob, the Syrians of Zuba, 12,000 men. Okay. Army of warriors. Okay. A lot of this stuff is going to be talking about war and stuff like that. That's self explanatory. This is why I'm kind of skimming through here. But the Syrians of Zuba, Rehob, of Tub, and Makkah were themselves in the field. Okay. Yeah, so these chapters, the reason we're kind of just going right through them is there's not much to expound on. Um, Seeing that the battle, Joab chose some from all the elect men of Yashar, all opposite the Syrians. So you have Joab, who is I guess first in command with the army there. Um okay, so Joab, the Syrians. Uh, so what's weird is they're in war against the Syrians and the Ammonites, it seems like. Um
Right.
Then Yahuwah will do what is to in his own sight. Um okay. See the Syrian enters into the city. You have returned. Okay, so yeah, there's not much to expound on in this chapter. Yeah. So far, the main themes we've seen so far is Daud showing mercy to Jonathan's descendant in the previous chapter. This chapter is more about the war that they're having with the Syrians
Mm-hmm.
and the Ammonites. I think the last chapter, right? They were also going at war with the Moabites.
Mm-hmm.
Those are really the main themes, mostly what you're going to get from these chapters. Okay. He drew together all. No. All right, the Syrians fled. You okay?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
700 chariots, 40,000 horsemen. Okay, so it's talking about the army there. Uh, all the kings of the servants. No. Huh. 58,000. Interesting. So there's a little bit extra here in the last verse in the Vulgate. It says, then all the kings who were in the reinforcements of Hadazur, seeing themselves to be defeated by Israel, were very afraid, and they fled 58,000 men um, before Yasharel. They made peace with Yasharel, and they served them. Um, and the Syrians were afraid to offer assistance to the sons of the Ammonite, Ammon anymore. But what's interesting is this: there's a little extra piece in the middle here. It's talking about there was 58,000 men from before Israel. You don't see that in
Mm-hmm.
your version doesn't have it either, right? In verse 19.
Okay.
So just to highlight for
Both
people,
kings who were vassals of Hadadezer.
show you guys what I'm talking about. So we go to like verse 19 here, and it says, seeing themselves to be defeated by Israel, were very afraid, and they fled 58,000 men before Israel. That seems to be missing.
Mm-hmm.
Which is giving you the amount of men that fled from before the army of Israel. So I'm assuming the 58,000 men would be the Ammonites.
Mm-hmm.
So that's interesting. That's the only thing of note I could really mention of chapter 10 there. That the Vulgate has a little bit extra there. So that was 2 Samuel 10, verse 19. The Vulgate has 58,000 men before Israel. Anyway, so now we're at chapter 11. I'm going to see if maybe Brother Dennis or Sister Shoshana would like to read 2 Samuel chapter 11.
Yeah. And it came to be at the turn of the year, at the time sovereigns go out to battle, that Daud sent Joab and his servants with him and all Yisrael, and they destroyed the children of Ammon and besieged Rabbah. But Daud remained at Jerusalem. And it came to be at evening time that Daud rose up from his bed and walked about on the roof of the sovereign's house. And from the roof he saw a woman bathing, and the woman was very good to look at. And Daud sent and asked about the woman, and one said, is this not Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam, the wife of Uriah the Hittite? And Daud sent messengers to fetch her. And she came to him, and he lay with her, for she was cleansing herself from her uncleanness. and he returned to her house. She returned to her house, sorry. And the woman conceived and sent and informed Daud, and said, I am pregnant. Then Daud sent to Joab, send Uriah the Hittite to me. And Joab sent Uriah to Daud. And Uriah came to him, and Daud asked how Joab was doing, and how the people were doing, and how the fighting was going. And Daud said to Uriah, go down to your house and wash your feet. And Uriah went out from the sovereign's house, and a gift from the sovereign followed him. But Uriah lay down at the door of the sovereign's house with all the servants of his master, and did not go down to his house. And they informed Daud, saying, Uriah did not go down to his house. So Daud said to Uriah, did you not come from a journey? Why did you not go down to your house? And Uriah said to Daud, the ark and Yisrael and Yehuda are dwelling in booths, and my master Joab and the servants of my master are encamped in the open fields. And should I go to my house to eat and drink, and to lie with my wife? As you live, and as your being lives, let me not do this. And Daud said to Uriah, remain here today also, and tomorrow I let you go. So Uriah remained in Jerusalem that day and the next. And Daud called him, and he ate and drank before him, and he made him drunk. And at evening he went out to lie on his bed with the servants of his master, but he did not go down to his house. And it came to be in the morning that Daud wrote a letter to Joab, and sent it by the hand of Uriah. And he wrote in the letter, saying, set Uriah in the front of the toughest battle, and you shall turn away from him, and he shall be stricken and die. And it came to be, as Joab watched the city, and he appointed Uriah to the place where he knew there were brave men. And the men of the city came out and fought with Joab. And some of the people of the servants of Daud fell, and Uriah the Hittite also died. And Joab sent and reported to Daud all the events of the battle, and commanded the messenger, saying, when you have finished reporting all the events of the battle to the sovereign, then it shall be, if the sovereign's wrath rises, and he says to you, why did you go so near to the city when you fought? Did you not know that they would shoot from the wall? Who struck Abimelech, the son of Yerubashis? Was it not a woman who threw an upper millstone on him from the wall, so that he died in Thebes? Why did you go near the wall? Then you shall say, your servant Uriah the Hittite is also dead. And the messenger went and came and reported to Daud all with which Joab had sent him. And the messenger said to Daud, the men have been mighty against us, and came out to us in the field, but we drove them back as far as the entrance of the gate, and the archers shot from the wall at your servants. And some of the sovereign's servants are dead, and your servant Uriah the Hittite is also dead. And Daud said to the messenger, say to Joab, Do not let this matter be evil in your eyes, for the sword devours one as well as another. Strengthen your attack against the city and overthrow it, and strengthen him. And the wife of Uriah heard that Uriah, her husband, was dead, and she lamented for her husband. And when her mourning was over, Daud sent and brought her to his house, and she became his wife and bore him a son. But the deed that Daud had done was evil in the eyes of Yahweh.
Mm-hmm. Caused him some great woes.
Oh, yeah.
He screwed up.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, he had to have known that was wrong.
Yeah.
It's absolutely adultery.
He fornicated unnaturally. Common knowledge.
Oh, where is Doug? Is anybody there? Sharon, are you there? Nobody can hear us, I guess. I don't know.
Sorry, guys, I was muted while Shoshana was reading. Go ahead, Mom.
Okay. What I was saying, I didn't realize at first we were muted, but what I was saying is that the last couple of years that I've read this portion, my eyes became open to the fact at the very beginning that it says that in the spring, when kings went off to war, David stayed in his palace. And I thought, gee, that's odd. He's a king, and kings are going off to war, yet David is here in his palace. And I began thinking that, it kind of is like a situation where our hands are to do when your hands have something to do, you should do it. And it just seemed like perhaps this whole scenario happened because David was home. He wasn't off with his troops fighting. Not to say he didn't deserve an extra little vacation, but he was not where he usually would be. And now all of a sudden he walks on his roof, and there's where this whole scenario begins. So I'm thinking he probably was meant to be with his troops instead of being home, being kind of idle, not really having much to do. My mother used to make an expression, idle hands are the devil's workshop, and I always sort of think about that sort of funny saying when I'm reading this, because see, Satan had every opportunity to try to he really hated David, because David was considered and was the father's son. He calls him his son, and he in a very real way is connected to Yahusha. So Satan really hated David a lot, because David was it was like a jealousy thing. David's my son, David's my anointed, he's the apple of my eye. And I really think that Satan wanted in a major way to bring David down. So that's kind of like what I was thinking about this.
Oh, yeah.
But I mean, it was very obvious that David knew the truth. He knew
Yes.
he was committing adultery.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
How could he put it in the back of his mind and and make it seem like he wasn't. I don't know, but
I think what happened, sister, is that his passion overtook him. I think that when he saw her, and I kind of think it's just an opinion, all right, but I kind of think that David was at the point in his life. Yes, he had other wives, but there was not like that sort of soulmate like person in his life. And I hate to even use the term soulmate, but that special love in his life. And I really think that when, after the whole initialness of this event, and I think that they did, it wasn't just lust. I think that they really did have real love for one another. And I think that she became kind of like that special love to him. And I just think he was overcome. Yeah, it's hard to imagine because he's the king of Israel, right?
right,
And of course he knows the Torah. And the other thing that I think, just in my own experience, is that once you commit that one really big sin, and it's kind of like becomes a snowball effect where you can't come clean because you need another sin to cover over the last one. And before he knew it, he was not in one sin, he was in multiple sins. And I
right.
think he got overwhelmed. And
Having Uriah killed that way, that was horrible.
yes, it was. Yes, it was. Absolutely, it was horrible. He was an innocent man. He didn't know that anything was going on with the king and his wife. And yeah, he was a very, very innocent bystander in the scenario, definitely. But it also shows the father's commitment. Yes, he was very unhappy with David, very, very, you might even say possibly angry with David. But look at the lengths he went to, because we haven't come to the part about Nathan yet. But look at the lengths he went to make sure. It's like, Satan's not grabbing you, David. And Satan, you're not getting my son David. He's in my prophecy. He has things to do in my plan for Israel, and for my son to be born through him. So you don't have him. I'm going to do whatever it takes to make sure my son comes back. And that's kind of how I see the whole Nathan experience, is that he wasn't getting through to him. He wasn't getting through to him. David wasn't repenting. And it wasn't until he sent Nathan with that story.
Right.
He knew what story to give him too, because he knew that David, as caring for sheep from his childhood, when he heard that story about a little ewe lamb, it created such an anger in him, because the father knows what sort of things that's going to get to us.
Right.
And so he sent that particular story to get to the heart of David. And yeah.
And you know something, just knowing that David did these things and was forgiven,
Yes.
makes us feel better, because we said, well, I haven't done anything that bad, and yet look at King David, and he was able to be forgiven for it. And we feel, I know me personally, I feel like I'm a horrible sinner in my past life,
Yeah.
and and how can I be forgiven? Then I look at David and I say, well, he forgave David, he can forgive me. And
Sister, you're absolutely right. I'll tell you, when I first came to Torah, this was the very first scenario that the Father used for me. And I think this is why I have such a connection with David. It is honest truth. Every sin that David committed, I have committed. I've probably never shared this with the group, and it's not an easy thing, but I had an abortion. and in my heathen backsliding days. And honestly, there's nothing David did that I did not commit. And the truth of the matter is that I just felt like such a connection with him, because I'm thinking everything he did, I've done. And if Yahuwah can forgive him, then yes, he can forgive me, and does forgive me. It honestly, that was the turning point for me after first coming into Torah. I battled with that for a while. Is that I honestly felt like I don't feel like I have been punished as much as David. And I began to get uncomfortable about that, thinking maybe he hasn't forgiven me. If he, you know what I'm saying? Like, if he hasn't punished me that much. And it was like Satan was jumping in there trying to make me feel like I couldn't be forgiven. It was this whole thing that I went through when I first came into Torah. And honestly, little by little, he used this scenario just to make it clear to me that if David can do these things and I will forgive him, I will also forgive you. And that was a turning point for me in Torah.
I think it was for a lot of us. I know that
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
for me, because I saw David as this perfect king,
Yes.
who
Yes.
do
Yeah.
anything wrong. And then when I read about Bathsheba and Uriah, and I thought, well, he wasn't so perfect, was he?
Nope.
And
It reminds us that we are all in Adam, that even though David was so righteous, he's capable of slipping, he's capable of falling like the rest of us. So that reminds us that even as high as we put David on our, pedestal, and I will admit that I do that. We have to remember that he too had the capability of stumbling, and
Yep.
you
And he
know,
did stumbled big time.
yeah, it's true. It's true, Shoshana. You're right. You're right. Those were huge sins, which is why it probably took Nathan to get him to repentance.
Yeah.
You know,
And Nathan certainly knew the right things to say.
oh, he sure did. Sure did.
And I think David was kind of oblivious until Nathan came, because he really didn't see it. He didn't see how bad he had done until
Right.
Nathan opened his eyes.
That's right, hon. That's right. Yep, he was very hard. His heart was not he was still, a little hard-hearted to repentance. He was not fully realized. And I also realized that when we sin on those big sins, it takes a lot to get through to us. It's not like, oh, I had adultery, today. Tomorrow I'm going to be fine. It takes a while for the Ruach to really get to us, to say, bring us, like, as it were, in Psalm 51, how David got to the point where he was able to pray that prayer, of repentance, and that we are to come with a broken heart and a contrite spirit. That's what Yahuwah requires. And it took a while for David to get to that place.
Yeah, but he did.
He did. You're right, sister. That's the main thing, is that he did. Absolutely. Absolutely.
And when you think about Messiah, because today we say, oh well, Messiah came and he died for us, and so
Yeah.
you have him to kind of be between us and Yahweh, to make sure we're forgiven. Well, back then, that was before Messiah had come in the flesh.
That's right. That's right.
And
Yahweh said that for he will not forgive you as I have forgiven you, for my name is in his name.
yeah, that's Exodus 23, 20, and 21. But I think what I was trying to say is that back then they didn't have Messiah as we have him.
That's right. That's
And,
right.
David had to go straight to Yahweh for that forgiveness.
That's right.
And he did.
Yes,
When he realized just what he'd done, he was like sick over it.
That's right. He most certainly was.
He
Yeah.
thought he could never be forgiven because he had done so badly, and yet he was forgiven.
Yeah.
And hallelujah.
Proof anywhere else that that the soldiers would have been going out to war that time of the year, like the turn.
No,
of the
I
year?
think that's the
That's the only instance.
Yeah, I believe so.
I find that really interesting because the Septuagint does not say that.
It doesn't.
It does not say the turn of the year. The Septuagint just says it's the time of the year for soldiers to go out to war.
Oh, okay.
It mentions
okay.
no phrase of the turn of the year. And the reason that's important is because I don't remember anywhere in the Torah where Yahuwah told soldiers to go out to war in the spring. There would be no command for that. I'm wondering if the Masoretes or rabbis before them added that in there
I
don't know.
as a tradition.
Be one of the first groups.
Because
Just as a comment,
oh, go ahead, bro. Go ahead.
Oh, just something I remember about what David said before he died was he said, I know that when I reawaken I will be satisfied. Like, of course, he knew the truth. Like he was going to be a first fruit.
Yeah.
Thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, Job as well. I think Job might be the one you're referring to.
Yeah.
that was Job too. Yeah.
Yeah, Job and Daniel both were told, or at least knew of the resurrection.
Yes.
Daniel was told, actually verbatimly by Gabriel that rest is your time to rest when you come to your lot, your inheritance. And Gabriel's basically giving him the clue that his resurrection will be when he gets that inheritance. And so, yeah, but yeah, I think you were thinking of Job because Job does say that. He talks about his Redeemer lives. I know that my Redeemer lives.
David said that
He
too.
raised my skin upon the earth. Yeah. But yeah, I just thought it was interesting that the Septuagint is the only one that doesn't mention turn of the year. It just says this is the time of the year that kings go out to battle. And so
that's interesting too, because March was named March because that's when armies would march out to war.
yeah, I wonder if Israel marched out to war in the spring, though. I know that the Romans did. I just wonder what time of the year they were actually supposed to go out to war. Because from what I remember, the Torah talks about you're supposed to wait if you get married, you're supposed to wait to go out to war. And I'm trying to remember when Israel always went out to war, what time of the year would it usually be? Like I'm trying to think of other instances where I don't think it was in spring a lot of the time. I think it just wouldn't make sense to me because in the spring they have the feasts coming, so they would be going to war when the feasts are happening. That'd be very weird if that's the case. Like
after Passover.
Yeah, like you got Passover, you got unleavened bread, all in the same month. Then you have first fruits. So it's very weird if they were going out to war at that time. I'm wondering if
That's just something I want to look more into because it seems like the later versions have that added in there. So I'm wondering when did that become a custom of going out to war at the turn of the year? I'm wondering if that became a later tradition for them to do that. Let me just look this up real quick. When did Israel usually go out to war? Because I know they didn't go out to war when they were in Canaan around that time. There was their first couple of Passovers, they definitely were not going out to war at that time. I'm just kind of wondering where this whole tradition started. See, let's see when. Let me try to get a more specific question here. What time of the year?
Yeah.
I've just noticed this that there's times in the Masoretic text where they add stuff in there to promote their traditions. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna have to look more into this because I'm not getting any real answers here. So, yeah, it's very strange that that there's a difference there. So, because I'm trying to remember when they first went out from Egypt, they had the Passover. Yahuwah fought for them. That's not really a war. Yahuwah fought for them. They weren't fighting. Then you have the second Passover in the wilderness. They were not fighting at that time, anyone. This would have been the only instance that really you could say there's proof of them fighting at the springtime. And so I'm kind of wondering if that became a tradition later on. Trying to think. Like, because mom, realistically, when they're going out to like kill the giants and all that, what time of the year would have that been?
Yeah, I was wondering that too.
You know, I don't think that was a Beeb when they were doing that. That was probably I would have to look back at that, but
yeah.
from what I remember, I don't remember ever talking about,
No.
you know, roughly around the time of March or April that they would be going to war. Now I know the Romans did and the heathen definitely did. I don't know if Israel did. Yeah. So
Well,
that
make me think of today and World War III is
Yeah.
yeah.
getting
I know. I thought about that too right now.
and this is the time for it to begin, and it
Oh, yeah, I see what they're saying. Yeah.
it's
The world against Yisrael.
yeah.
Yeah. Interesting.
I'm just checking real quick in Deuteronomy to see if sometimes it will give you the month and the day of the month when they go out to do things.
World War II didn't hit America until December.
Yeah.
December 7th,
Yeah.
1941, a day that live in infamy. You know.
Exactly. So we don't really know exactly when it's going to hit this country, but we do know that they're wanting to destroy America,
Mm-hmm.
take away all our guns and
Take
kill,
away our life.
kill us, and yeah, um,
Yeah, they want to kill us and destroy us and take our life.
I'm trying to remember what chapter it was where it talks about they wiped out the Amorite kings. Let me see here. I just want to look at something really quick. What? Oh, you know what? Here's a perfect example of showing that they didn't always go to war in the spring, and I think there's something up with that verse because I get it. It's an apocryphal book, but the point is that the Maccabees, they went to war in winter. They even though I get it, I understand that they had no choice in the matter, but they went to war. Roughly, most people believe the first Feast of Dedication happened somewhere between November and December. So they would have had to fight, the Maccabees would have had to fight Antiochus and them like roughly around late fall into the winter. So the idea that, I just would like to look into this idea that they were that the time of going out to war supposedly was the spring. Because I kind of wonder if that's the case, if why there's other instances they went to war in different times of the year.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder how old that tradition really is, and if it was a later tradition. Because it's weird that this is the only passage in all of
Mhm,
Scripture
mhm.
that is referenced. Nowhere in the Torah it says they're supposed to go out in the spring. Nowhere you don't see
Mhm.
anywhere in the Torah it tells them to do that. It's very weird. It's the fact that you don't find it until Second Samuel's written, which some will argue that Second Samuel was not written when it happened. It was written by later Israelites that witnessed the things. So I wonder if that became just a cultural thing.
I can see why they would do it in the spring, because they'd say, well, the coldest weather's over, and
Yeah.
we can concentrate on fighting now. We won't be getting cold and starving. Uh,
Mhm. Great.
yeah, that's the main reason I would think they would do it in the
Killing
spring.
leisure.
What, Dennis?
Killing leisure.
Yeah, kill and leisure. Well,
Hmm.
I'm that one thing that soldiers worry about is having enough food, and another thing is getting too cold. So um
Nowadays, of course, they get sick, they get wounded. They're liable to die from infection than anything else.
well, that's true, but I mean, you can't fight as well if you're cold and hungry.
Knocks down the killing efficiency.
I stand corrected. There's other places it talks about this. Okay. First Kings. Looks like here we have First Kings 20:22 talks about the king of Israel was warned that he will be attacked by the king of Assyria when spring comes.
Wow.
First Kings 20:22. And then we have Nebuchadnezzar embarks on a campaign against King Hezekiah in the spring of the year. Second
Wow.
Chronicles 36:10. So I want to check these.
Mhm.
Let me see here. First Kings 20:22. I don't know where they're getting the idea this is the spring. It doesn't say the spring. Just says, and the prophet came to king of Israel and said, strengthen yourself, observe, see what you shall do. For a return, oh, I get it. Return of the year. Okay. the son of Adar, king of Syria, comes up against you. Now, return of the year, I wonder if that's... I don't think that's the same thing. Return of the year. Let me see. I want to see what the Greek says for return, if that means... The Vulgate is like the only one that actually makes it a lot clearer. It says the following year. So it's meaning that the time of the new year is when Syria's coming against him. For some reason, the other versions are very vague. Let's see here. You okay, Mom?
Yeah, I'm good.
I will make the house as the house of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, as the house of Baasa. Okay, what the heck? Why does it read that different? First Kings 20:22. What?
Thing is, she knows it. She knows that I'm holding her up.
Why is it so different? You okay there, Mom?
Yeah, I'm just repositioning myself.
That's weird. I don't know why it's different. Okay.
It's very trusting.
Now, this is interesting. This is completely different, this verse, actually. The Septuagint is actually showing that this verse is not even there. It ends with, because the provocation with which you have provoked me and caused Israel to sin. So this is more a judgment on Jeroboam, and there's no mention of it's weird. It's the let me see here. Okay, so I guess it depends on the translation here. Okay. So let me see here. So the return of the year, the son of Adar, king of Syria, comes against you. Return of the year doesn't mean return of the year. Let's see.
I'm okay. Having a breath.
Epistreho. This means to revert, figuratively or morally. Come again. Yeah, I could see how it's the new year in that context. Okay. So it like saying that it would return again to that time of the year. Okay. I get what it's trying to say. Okay. So anyway, yeah, so it seems like that was something that was a specific time they would go to war. I just wanted to double check, especially since the Septuagint doesn't have it in verse 1, so I just wanted to double check. Second Chronicles 36:10 was the other one. So there's multiple of them here. Now, according to the blogs that are out there, supposedly they don't do that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
They don't go out until summer
Oh,
now. So
Yeah, most wars now are push button anyway.
Okay.
yeah, it's weird because supposedly people didn't realize that they used to do that because nowadays they go out in the summer. So yeah. Okay, when the year was expired. Now this is a little difference here. Okay, this is subtle. But it is a difference. Now, the Masoretic says when the year expired, King Nebuchadnezzar went up. Versus the Septuagint says when the turn of the year happened. So I guess it's not a huge difference, but you have a little bit of difference between when um they would have considered when he came up against them.
Well,
So
turn year refers to the spring equinox, I believe.
yeah. So maybe it is saying the same thing. Okay. Okay, in the turn of the year. Okay, so it is saying the same thing. When the year end was expired. Okay. Yeah. Um
And we know from the book of Enoch that at that time the spring equinox was considered the last day of the year. So that is definitely, in more ways than one, the turning of the year, because it's fixing to start a new year.
yeah. Yeah. So yeah, that's something I never realized before that that was a time of the year that they go out to war and stuff like that. So it's kind of interesting. But I think that's about it for today. I don't think there's anything else to really expound upon. So you guys already talked about the thing with David and Bathsheba and all that. There's nothing to really expound upon with that. Other than I think there was probably some other stuff going on. I think a good safe assumption to assume is that there was something going on too with his other wife, Mikal or whatever her name was. I think at that time there was some definitely friction between them two, and the devil took advantage of Daoud probably being mad at his wife.
Got upset because he was going around dancing without enough clothes on.
Yeah.
And
because of that, she became barren.
Yeah. 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 The only thing else to add was I know some people are probably thinking like, wait a minute, she was married to a Hittite. I don't think that means like of the giants. I think sometimes in the scripture where you live somewhere geographically you get associated with that location. So if not Ephron, the guy Uriah, if Uriah lived in a Hittite city in Israel, he would be called a Hittite.
Right.
I don't believe that means he was descendant of the Hittites.
Yeah.
I don't. And that's just my personal opinion, because you'll see in scripture sometimes, like sometimes it will label someone a Canaanite in the New Testament that's really not a Canaanite. They're like they're of that geographic location, just
right.
for example, if it didn't matter your tribe of the southern house, if you lived in Judah, you were lumped up as a Judean. You could be a Benjamite and you're still called a Judean. So it had to do with a geographical connotation.
Right.
So just to explain to people, because I know some people be like, "Oh, she married a Hittite, isn't wouldn't Yahuwah want him to wipe him out anyway?" Well, technically, I seriously doubt Uriah was an actual physical genetic Hittite. And even Jewish traditions attribute him as like an Israelite. The assumption is that he lived in a Hittite city or something. So that's kind of what I personally believe. So Uriah was a righteous Israelite man, and that's why David was punished the way he was punished. he didn't just lust after Bathsheba with his eyes and his heart. He actually acted upon it, and he committed adultery by, he committed adultery and murder technically at the same time.
Yes, he did. It's almost like all he could think about is he didn't want to be caught committing adultery, so he was going to get rid of the evidence, meaning Uriah.
Mm-hmm.
That's what makes it so such a bad sin, because he not only committed adultery, but he got rid of the husband.
Yeah. Yep. Well, I think that's about it for today, everyone. So all of you guys have joined in, listened in. Hopefully, you got something out of this study today. I try to apologize to you guys on the YouTube live chat. This was actually chapters 9 to 11. So if you see the title, I apologize for the confusion. That's my fault. But hopefully you guys got some edification out of this today. And yeah. So please stay tuned, everyone. You who are willing, we will be back next Shabbat, and we will be continuing in 2 Samuel chapter 12 to 14. And to all brothers and sisters, Shabbat Shalom. Have a great rest of Abba Yahusha's Shabbat, and see you guys next time.